Just ignore it. It was a job easier said than done. And honestly, was it even a good idea? In my head, I ran through the list of potential voids that could have been lurking behind us. Of course, none of them were really ideal, especially not the rowdy clown whose laugh sounded hauntingly similar to the one we were hearing behind us. And then we heard it again, louder this time. I muttered a barely audible "fuck" in response. Realistically, if it did turn out to be one of the voids, putting up some kind of resistance would have been pointless anyway. We were as good as done for. With that logic in mind, I turned my attention back to the monitors, hoping that whatever the hell was behind us would stay put for a bit longer. In the meantime, Hugo and Kale were about to fight the gladiator and his minions.
"Hey, Englishman," Kale said. "You regenerate quickly?"
Hugo sighed, stretching his neck out. "First of all, don't call me that. It's rather crass, and no, not much faster than the average man. But no matter. God has ordained me a holy commission. He won't let me die until I fulfilled my duty."
Kale just laughed. "You're a real piece of work, British boy. Let's see if your God helps us make it out of this."
"You two aren't who I'm looking for," the gladiator bellowed before releasing both leashes.
"Take out the trash."
The freak ran about 6 steps before having his face caved in and neck subsequently snapped by Hugo. In the meantime, the centipede began crawling towards Kale.
"Who the fuck created this thing?"
he said, shuddering slightly. The centipede lifted itself up, swiping 2 of its arms at the visibly disturbed vampire.
"Shit, don't touch me,"
he shouted, before kicking its face, removing its muzzle in the process. He regretted that decision instantly. The centipede had 4 or 5 rows of spike-like teeth, with a horde of flesh-covered tentacles swarming out of its mouth. One of them grabbed Kale by the leg, dragging him down.
"God damn it!"
he shouted, attempting to squirm out of the appendage's grasp. Nevertheless, Hugo came to the rescue, turning the centipede's head into mush with one vicious stomp. He shot Kale a cold gaze. "Take his name in vain again, and our temporary alliance is over." Kale shot the tentacle remnants off of his legs, his face still utterly disgusted.
Yeah, holy fucking shit, this is nasty."
And then they both stared at the gladiator, who was grinning something malicious.
"Congratulations, you two have entered the privilege of being my combat slaves." "I would literally rather fucking die," Kale shouted.
"I submit myself to God and God alone. Diseases like you shall perish at his will," Hugo added. The gladiator drew his smoldering sword, which must have been the size of a person.
"Then so be it," he roared.
The two rushed him simultaneously, attempting to bury the burning menace with a flurry of quick strikes. But that wasn't the best idea. They couldn't even touch the gladiator without suffering from burns themselves. Kale sighed.
"Some asshole just had to dig this fuck up, didn't they?"
The gladiator stepped forward, unleashing a big swing that singed a few hairs off Hugo's head.
"Bastard!"
he shouted before sending a hard cross at the gladiator, shattering his chestplate armor in the process.
"You're pretty strong there, Brit. We just might win this one," Kale grinned.
"Like I said, God will give me enough strength to overcome these trials." Hugo moved towards the gladiator with a seemingly unwavering resolve, his eyes shining a bright crimson. His face was wrought with such intense, stoic determination that I nearly forgot his ultimate goal was to commit a global genocide and began cheering him on. The gladiator sneered at the challenge, swinging his blade once again. This time, Hugo deflected it with an elbow, cracking the metal while doing so. He followed up by directing a flying hook kick at the gladiator's jaw, managing to rip it off completely. Kale followed up by biting into the gladiator's shoulder and tearing a large chunk off, burning most of his face in the process.
"Ugh,"
he said, spitting the charred chunk of undead flesh.
"Not my cup of tea."
"Are you all right?" Hugo asked, staring at his scorched face.
"Yeah, should heal up in no time."
However, the gladiator was relentless, letting out a frenzied roar before bolting towards Kale. He managed to dodge most of the gladiator's blows, only taking the full brunt of his last punch. Still, that one blow was enough to form a deep, fleshy crater in his torso, while also sending him flying into the steel rail, causing it to bend.
"Fuck,"
Kale stammered out, staring down at the unsightly wound.
"Nope, that's not good. Gonna take longer to heal."
Hugo exhaled. The situation has become bothersome. He went back after the gladiator, sending a ruthless barrage of strikes his way. There was an evident skill gap between the two voids, with Hugo landing about 90% of his attacks. On the other hand, the gladiator only managed to land 3 or 4 clean hits of his own. Nonetheless, each one of them dealt far more damage than any of Hugo's. After about a minute of fighting, Hugo's left arm was completely mangled. His right rib cage had been shattered, and the entire right side of his face was burnt. The gladiator had also taken a fair amount of damage, but not nearly enough to even slow it down. Cale groaned as he attempted to insert himself back into the fight. But that task wasn't an easy one. He could hardly move with his torso just about completely destroyed. I suppose this must be my final trial, Hugo said somewhat solemnly. The hell are you talking about? Cale asked, still groaning. And then, for the first time since we began watching, Hugo smiled. God wills it. Using his good arm, Hugo removed the upper section of his robe, revealing a pale, mutilated, scar-ridden body underneath. He muttered another prayer before looking up at the ceiling, tears now swelling up in his eyes. Thank you, he muttered. Along with his eyes, the scars on his body suddenly began to glow a deep red. Tricks won't be enough, the gladiator thundered, before swinging his blade at Hugo's neck. I don't think I managed to catch exactly what happened next, however. I was certain that I was about to see a head rolling. Instead, the gladiator's blade shattered into what looked like 1,000,000 pieces. At first, I didn't even notice the gaping hole in the gladiator's chest. How did you... The gladiator was interrupted by his neck being brutally cranked to the side. As the flaming behemoth dropped, so did Hugo. By then, Cale had regenerated to the point of being able to walk. He stumbled over to the near comatose bishop. What the fuck was that? He asked, half grinning. I detached myself from earthly limitations. An egregious sin, but I needed to fulfill my holy mission. Well, shit. It's pretty cool, I guess. Not your psycho mission, but the whole detachment thing. He held out his hand in an attempt to help Hugo up. However, Hugo shook his head in response. This is as far as I go. Not something I can recover from. I only have judgment to face now. Oh, shut the fuck up, Cale said, picking up Hugo's limp body and lumbering it over his shoulder. We'll find you some painkillers. You'll be back on your feet in no time. Why would you help me? Hugo asked. You will understand what I'm after, don't you? My ideals. Well, I don't think I could have handled the gladiator on my own, so I guess I owe you. Crazy fuck. He looked over at Hugo and grinned. And who knows? Maybe you'll learn something. Yeah, there's a lot of scum in the world. There's also a lot of beauty. Don't have to destroy it all. That's... Hugo passed out before he could finish his thought. Still carrying him over his shoulder, Cale took off running down another corridor. I did a quick sweep of the monitors. Satanbot had taken out 2 more lower-tier voids, while Morgie had engaged with a high hurricane void named the Mechanic, 6'5", 270 pounds. Like the name suggested, he was a large, burly man in a mechanic outfit that enjoyed obliterating skulls with blunt tools. Real ruthless guy. On another monitor, the undead Nazi had just finished slicing the shit out of the devil nurse, who was a mid-tsunami. So that's 12 down, I thought. 20 left. The shit show wasn't anywhere near done. Hey, check it out, Sandy said. There's still 4 voids who haven't escaped yet. Sure enough, he was right. First off, there was the Titan. 15 feet, 7 inches, 1,438 pounds. A colossal entity with destructive capabilities that were nigh impossible to deal with. It was humanoid with a immensely muscular frame, further accentuated by the fact that there wasn't an ounce of fat on its entire body. Its harder-than-steel skin was reddish and cracked all over, with a roadmap of razor-like veins bulging out of every square inch. And then there was the face. It had 6 sets of glowing blue eyes, and a mouthful of fangs with exposed gums that were caustic to the touch. His holding cell, if you could even call it that, was a bit more fortified than the rest. Under-exaggerating, of course. It was fortified to goddamn hell. No electronic locks connected to a central system either. It's probably what caused the breach to begin with. Good thing, too. He was a low asteroid. The next up was the Warden, 8'7", 435 pounds. Ironically enough, the guy actually used to run a prison of his own. What kind of prison that might be was beyond me. He had pale white skin, shadow-like eyes, and long, slick-back silver hair. His trench coat was long and perpetually bloody, sweeping the floor as he walked. I've heard stories about the guy. Supposedly he killed upwards of 700 prisoners during a breach at his prison, managing to come up unscathed from a devastating explosion afterward. He was as dangerous as a void could get without being considered asteroid tier, being a high earthquake. Funnily enough, his cell was wide open, with guard bodies and destroyed mech suits littering the space, but instead of getting up and walking out, he simply sat, expression devoid of anything at all, like it usually was. Obviously, he was up to no good. Next one was quite the doozy. Strongest void in the entire chasm, in fact. He went by a simple moniker. The Calamity of Earth. Or the Calamity, for short. Its gender was unknown. Height and weight? Unknown. Appearance? Unknown to everybody except for the top official overseeing the entire fucking operation. Hell, we didn't even know where it was kept. Only thing we had to monitor was a simple panel containing 3 lights. Green, safe, still contained. Yellow, breakout in progress, evacuate immediately. And red, breached. But too fucking late. What did we know about this thing? Nothing, save for the fact that a breach would most likely result in a global catastrophe. Of course, it was a high asteroid. The only high asteroid, in fact. And then there was a last still captive void, but unlike the 3 overpowered monsters I've already talked about, he was a lot different. The kid, 5'6", 142 pounds. As his name implies, the kid was just that, a kid. From his appearance, he couldn't have been older than 16, 17 at most. Only thing we knew about him was that he apparently had extraordinary, undisclosed abilities. Abilities he used to slaughter his entire village back in Kerala, India. Who the hell knows what actually happened? To me, and nearly every other guard, he just seemed like your average, meek teenager. In fact, we rarely ever exercised caution around him. Unlike the rest of the voids in here, he just did as he was told, always with this incredibly sullen expression on his face. I suppose can't blame him, given the circumstances. We didn't even bother putting a threat level on him. Nevertheless, we were instructed to keep him in there. There's a lot of stuff going on here in the chasm. Those guards don't quite understand. I make no reservations about that. I know for a goddamn fact that we're not doing any saintly work here. Do a lot of voids in here deserve to be locked up? Not even. They deserve to be wiped off the face of the earth. Never understood why we bothered holding the more malicious ones, using taxpayer money just to keep them alive. And then there were the ones I wasn't quite sure belonged here at all. Did they even do anything wrong? Who knows? One thing was for sure. They were different. Exceptional, I guess. The subjects of state curiosity. I always tried suppressing these thoughts. I mean, who the hell was I? Some random fucking guard, not some arbiter of morality. Still. Fuck it. It's not the time, so... Let's see. What happens next? I turned to face a random monitor, trying to take my mind off the kid. I caught what appeared to be the middle of a fight, with 2 combatants being Jack the Ripper, 6'1", 170 pounds, the infamous serial killer. Apparently, he'd performed some arcane ritual while on death's door that granted him an extended lifespan and superhuman strength in exchange for what was left of his already dwindling humanity. He hardly resembled a man when we caught him. Mouth full of sharp, rotting teeth, eyes sunken beyond reason, and a face riddled with cuts, burns, and various infections. He was quite the sore sight to behold. At that moment, he was once again on death's door. The person who put him there? Bella Vauclin, also known as the Bloody Painter. 5'5", 122 pounds. Despite looking more like a normal woman, she was a brutal assassin that wasn't too concerned with the aftermaths of her jobs. After killing her target, she painted a bloody picture on the walls. Sometimes she'd supplement her art with a few organs. She wasn't incredibly strong, but that didn't matter all that much. She had the obscure ability where she could summon blades out of thin air at the tip of her fingers, and then use some Esper-like ability to shoot them off in rapid succession, almost at a machine gun-like rate of fire. She had no problem reducing her targets to mincemeat, the ones she really disliked, that is. When we finally captured her, she maintained that she only killed the ones that really deserved it. However, any chance of appeal, not that there was a chance to begin with, was shattered when she punctured the throats of 4 guards. She still claims that it was an accident to this day. Do I believe her? Well, it's about 50-50 with me. Like I said, she had Jack on the ropes with what must have been over 100 blades planted firmly within the killer's body, including both of his eyes. Still, he'd yet to give up as he swung Wirehead's bat. Must have picked it up, blindly and wildly around him. Bella wasn't unscathed herself, though. It looked as if she'd taken a couple of pretty bad hits to her ribs and thigh. In addition to that, she had a gnarly bite mark on her hand. Nevertheless, she smiled, pointed a finger like a pistol at the frenzied Jack. "Profiter de l'enfer," she said, before blasting the killer to shreds, finally ending his grim legacy. Once she was done with that, she let out a loud sigh, clutching her ribs and wincing in pain. Unlike most of the other voids, she wasn't capable of taking too much punishment. After walking for a bit, she came across Luz. While still badly mangled from his confrontation with Wirehead, he was walking again. The two stared at each other for about a minute, where Bella stuck out her hand and smiled. It was a risk, for sure. But while Luz didn't reciprocate the smile, he cooperated, accepting the handshake without electrocuting her. Another team-up, and one I wouldn't necessarily have expected. I did another quick sweep of the monitors. Morgie had taken out the mechanic, although he was limping now, and his next fight wasn't going to be an easy one. He was a few steps from coming across Satanbot. In the meantime, and funnily enough, the undead Nazi was about to square off with the sadistic Soviet, 6'2", 215 pounds, low earthquake tier. Instead of being zombified like the Nazi, he was more mechanical. More specifically, he was about 60% robot, with his human bits slowly beginning to rot away. The surgeon was engaged in a bloody duel with Spider-Man, 6'9", 225 pounds. Unlike Peter Parker, this guy was basically just a large tarantula with human skin and a half-human head. Kale and Hugo were in the medical center, with the former tending to the latter's wounds. I thought about everything for a second, trying to run the numbers through my head. There were 4 more voids who had definitely escaped that I hadn't yet seen on any of the monitors, but I was really only concerned about 2 of them. You see, within the chasm, there are 4 asteroid-tier voids in total. Only 2 of them were still contained. Problem was rather obvious. Beyond that, there were now 14 voids dead, 4 who still hadn't joined the fight, 14 clearly active, all 4 asteroids still in play, 3 high earthquakes as well. TFVNH likely on their way. Holy fuck, I thought to myself. The real fight hasn't even started yet. A bout of sudden, raucous laughter nearly gave me a heart attack. I looked at Sandu, but his face was dead serious. That meant shit. With everything that was going on, I completely forgot about the elephant in the room. But sure enough, they were finally ready to reveal themselves. As footsteps began emanating from the darkness behind us, I braced myself for whatever horrific entity we were surely about to encounter. But instead of that, it was an unfamiliar guy that looked to be in his mid-20s with messy, dirty blonde hair, dressed in a Hawaiian shirt and khaki shorts. Probably around 5'10", 130 pounds, soaking wet. What the hell? Sandu said upon seeing him. The man continued laughing as he strolled towards us. "Oh, man," he blurted out in between chuckles. "There's shit in both of your pants right now, isn't there? Don't lie to me." "Well, Joke's gone on long enough. Who the fuck are you? Sandu asked, sounding somewhat agitated. The man put his arms up in an ostensibly defensive manner. Relax. I'm just an observer here, but... His bloodshot eyes seemed to bulge out as they wandered over the monitors. Looks like the preliminaries are over. Time for the good shit. To be continued. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and as always, I want to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video. We're entering into the summer, which means for me, I have horrible allergies, and that means for you, you might not, but hey, I'm going to tell you about this anyway. My wife has a tea shop. It's called etsy.com/shop/ivory-monocle-tea. If you go down into the description, you'll find a link over to it, and hey, there's actually a whole bunch of new teas there available to help you with things like allergies. They've been a hell of a help for me. And if you've been watching me record live on Twitch, then you'll see that I'm not sniffling, at least not as much. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who is on my Patreon. That means everybody. Everyone who is from the $1 tier all the way up to the, God, why do you pledge that much tier? But I especially want to give a big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Bobby Karman, Tristain Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Kyle Reznak, Happy Birthday Ollie Whale, David Martin, scare-ington, the unkempt, Angelus, Spanky, Snootchie bootchies, Autistic Spidey, phruty, Seclude, Lupita Galvan, that creepy chick, Tyler Fletcher, Rebecca Harper, Merxinum, Red Shadow Cat, Xavier the Cheyenne, Demyx, Shawn Cadieu-baker, 6 gay rats in a trench coat, Turtleman, Rob Likes Sharp Things, Chaos Arts, Cryolinian, Zachary Gruffius, Lord Life's Best, Goreng Trimagacy, Maria Walker, Pain Gravy, Crazy Kid, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Aka Limchalk, Dirt Diver 030, Matt Bach, Naughty Devil, Voice of Sands, Coffee Zombie, Matthew McNeese, Shelly J, Jeremy H, Reltazol, Ficomel, Nana, Deleted Account, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Darth Miver, Michael Ortiz, Satanic Aries, Nessie, Bardo Hawk 764, Lambda M98, Harley, Sashi Suzaku, Croconut 509, Kaylee Ambrose, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Nicholas Sicardi, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Benjamin Welvart, Kiri the Sloth, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. As always, you guys are the MVPs. Everybody who's on that list, everybody who's on that Patreon, everybody who's in the description, thank you so much. And if you'd like to join this list of names that I horribly mispronounce, head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. And as always, everyone, sweet dreams.